You're asking the wrong question. Why does God allow pain? That question assumes pain is the problem. But what if I told you that your comfort is actually the crisis? What if the very thing you're running from, the struggle, the sleepless night, the financial pressure, the heartbreak, what if that's not God's cruelty but his curriculum? The universe isn't punishing you, it's teaching you. And the moment you understand the difference between punishment and preparation, everything changes. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share will flip your entire theology upside down and set you free in ways religion never could. You see, you've been taught that God is supposed to protect you from difficulty. So when life gets hard, you feel abandoned, confused, or even betrayed by the very faith that promised peace. You keep going back and forth. One moment you're blaming yourself, thinking I must not have enough faith. And the next moment you're angry at God, thinking if he loved me, this wouldn't be happening. And that contradiction, that theological confusion, is destroying your trust, your peace, and your ability to move forward with any sense of purpose. But here's what I want you to understand today. This video is going to completely reframe suffering for you, not as evidence of God's absence, but as proof of his intentional design. You're going to discover that pain isn't punishment. It's a delivery system for purpose. Struggles aren't obstacles to your destiny. They're the very ingredients of it. And the myth we're busting today is this lie that God's love equals comfort. The truth we're revealing is that God's love equals transformation, and transformation requires resistance. Most religious teaching does one of two things. Either it spiritualizes pain away, just have more faith and it'll disappear, or it theologizes it into mystery. God's ways are unknowable. Don't ask questions. This video does neither. Instead, we're going to treat struggle as a divine technology, a precise, purposeful tool God uses to unlock capacities in you that ease could never develop. You're going to walk away not with religious platitudes, but with a paradigm shift that turns your pain into a compass pointing toward your calling. You're going to feel relief. You're going to get clarity. And you're going to stop performing spiritual gymnastics trying to explain why your life doesn't match the prosperity gospel. Most importantly, you're going to restore trust in a God whose love is too intelligent to be reduced to comfort. Now, I want you to imagine something with me. Imagine a young apprentice who comes to a master sculptor begging to be taught. The master agrees, but on the first day, he hands the apprentice a block of marble and a chisel and walks away. The apprentice is confused. "Master, when will you teach me?" The master replies, "I am teaching you. Strike the stone." Days pass. The apprentice strikes the stone. His hands blister. His arms ache. The chisel slips and cuts his palm. He's exhausted, frustrated, humiliated. He thinks, this master doesn't care about me. He's abandoned me. He's ready to quit. This isn't what I signed up for. I came here to learn, not to suffer. But then, one morning, the master returns. He examines the stone, and slowly he begins to speak. "Every strike you made, I was watching. Every mistake, I allowed, because it taught you pressure, angles, grain. Your bleeding hands taught you respect for the material. Your exhaustion taught you patience. Your failures taught you precision. You thought I left you, but I was letting the stone teach you what words never could." Then the master says something that changes everything. You are not just learning to sculpt stone, you are being sculpted. And every hardship you endured while working on that marble was actually God's chisel working on you. The apprentice finally understands. The pain wasn't random, it was curriculum. The struggle wasn't neglect, it was necessary. The master didn't abandon him. The master positioned him perfectly to learn what lectures could never teach. And here's what I need you to see. You are that apprentice. Right now, in this season, you're holding a chisel and your hands are bleeding and you're wondering where God went. But he didn't go anywhere. He's watching. He's letting the struggle do its work. Because there are some things about yourself, about your character, about your capacity that you will never discover in comfort. You will only discover them under pressure. The apprentice in that story, he had a choice. He could quit and walk away, blaming the master for being cruel, or he could stay and trust that there was wisdom in the method even when he couldn't see it yet. And that's your choice too. You can walk away from this season bitter, angry, convinced that God failed you. Or you can stay in it Trust the process and let it shape you into something you could never become without it. See, the master sculptor knew something the apprentice didn't. He knew that theory doesn't build skill. Lectures don't create mastery. Only practice does. Only repetition. Only struggle. Only the experience of failing and trying again. The master could have given the apprentice a book. He could have shown him drawings. He could have explained techniques. But none of that would have built the muscle memory, the instinct, the wisdom that only comes from doing the work yourself. And God operates the same way. He could explain everything to you. He could give you a blueprint for your life. He could tell you exactly why every hard thing is happening, but that wouldn't grow you. That wouldn't develop you. You'd have information, but you wouldn't have transformation. And God is not interested in giving you information. He's interested in transformation. He wants to change who you are, not just what you know. Let me tell you about another man. A man who thought he was doing God's work, but was actually destroying it. He found a cocoon hanging from a tree, and inside a butterfly was fighting to break free. He watched for hours as the creature pushed, twisted, struggled. It looked painful, exhausting. And in a moment of misguided compassion, he took a blade and carefully cut the cocoon open. The butterfly fell out, but it couldn't fly. Its wings were shriveled, weak, undeveloped. Within hours, it died. What the man didn't know was that the struggle to break free from the cocoon is what forces fluid from the butterfly's body into its wings, giving them the strength to fly. The pain wasn't the problem. It was the process. And by rescuing the butterfly from its struggle, he robbed it of its capacity. He killed it with kindness. He destroyed it with comfort. Now here's where this gets personal. How many times have you prayed for God to cut you out of your cocoon, to remove the pressure and the struggle, make it easy? And how many times has God, in his wisdom, refused? Not because he doesn't love you, but because he loves you too much to stunt your growth. The pain you're in right now might be the very thing developing your wings. And if God removed it prematurely, you'd never fly. You'd fall. You'd die spiritually, emotionally, mentally, never becoming what you were designed to be. Think about it. That man with the blade thought he was being merciful. He thought he was helping. He looked at the butterfly's struggle and thought, this is cruel. This is too hard. I need to rescue it. But his mercy was actually murder. His help was actually harm, because he didn't understand the purpose of the process. And I wonder how many well-meaning people in your life are trying to do the same thing to you right now. How many people are telling you to quit, to walk away, to give up, to take the easy road? How many voices are saying, you don't have to go through this. Just leave. Just escape. Just avoid the pain. And those voices might sound like love, but they're actually leading you toward weakness. They're trying to cut you out of your cocoon before your wings are developed. God doesn't listen to those voices. And sometimes he doesn't listen to your voice either when you're praying for escape. Not because he's cruel, but because he sees what you can't see yet. He sees the wings. He sees the strength. He sees the version of you that's waiting on the other side of this struggle. And he loves you too much to shortcut the process. So if pain is purposeful and struggle is sacred, then the question isn't, why is this happening? The real question is, what is this trying to build in me? And that's where most people miss the entire point. They spend so much energy fighting the struggle that they never learn from it. They're so busy asking God to remove it that they never ask God to reveal what it's for. Let me be blunt with you. You've been lied to. You were taught that if you're suffering, you must have sinned. That pain is God's wrath, his disappointment, his rejection. But that's not theology. That's trauma projected onto God. That's religion trying to control you with fear and guilt. Pain is actually one of the most sophisticated communication systems in existence. When you touch fire, pain doesn't mean your body hates you. It means your body is protecting you. It's information. Move your hand. Now, without pain, you'd burn to ash without realizing it. Pain is what keeps you alive. There's a rare condition called congenital insensitivity to pain. People born with this condition can't feel pain, and you'd think that would be a blessing, right? No headaches, no broken bones hurting, no suffering. But it's actually a curse. These individuals constantly injure themselves without knowing it. They break bones and keep walking. They burn themselves and don't pull away. They bite their tongues bloody. Many don't survive childhood because pain, the thing we all hate, is actually what protects us. Spiritual and emotional pain works the same way. When a relationship hurts you, that pain is information. This dynamic is toxic. Adjust or exit. When a job drains you, that pain is information. You're out of alignment with your design. Pivot. When isolation weighs on you, that pain is information. You were made for connection. Seek community. When anxiety overwhelms you, that pain is information. Something in your life is out of balance. Slow down, reevaluate, recalibrate. God doesn't send pain to punish you. He allows it to redirect you. And the tragedy is that most people spend their lives numbing the pain instead of listening to it. They medicate, distract, perform, pretend, all to avoid the discomfort. But in doing so, they ignore the very signal system designed to guide them toward wholeness. They silence the alarm while the house burns down. And let me tell you something else. The people who numb their pain the most are often the ones who suffer the longest, because they never address the root issue. They just cover it up. They put a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. They smile on the outside while they're dying on the inside. And they wonder why they're not growing, why they're not healing, why they keep ending up in the same situations over and over again. It's because they never learned the lesson. They never listened to the pain. They never asked, what is this trying to tell me? They just tried to make it stop as fast as possible. And so they stay stuck. They stay small. They stay in cycles they were never meant to repeat. Here's another truth that will offend every comfort-addicted believer. Ease is not a blessing. Ease is a sedative. It lulls you into complacency, entitlement, fragility. Show me a person who's never struggled, and I'll show you a person with no depth, no resilience, no capacity. Show me someone who's had everything handed to them, and I'll show you someone who crumbles the moment life pushes back. You know this already. Every muscle in your body was built through resistance. You don't develop strength by avoiding weight. You develop it by lifting it. The gym doesn't apologize for the burn. The coach doesn't remove the resistance. Why? Because they understand that growth only happens at the edge of your capacity. Comfort keeps you weak. Resistance makes you strong. I've watched it happen 1,000 times. Someone lifts weights for months and their muscles grow. They get stronger. They get capable. But the moment they stop, the moment they decide they've had enough and they want to coast, what happens? The muscle atrophies. It shrinks, it weakens, it disappears. Your body doesn't maintain strength in the absence of resistance. It loses it. And your character works the same way. Your faith works the same way. Your capacity works the same way. If God removed every challenge, every obstacle, every difficulty from your life, you wouldn't grow. You'd shrink. You'd become fragile, weak, incapable of handling anything hard. And then when life inevitably throws something at you, because life always does, you chatter. Now apply that to your life. Every hardship is a weight. Every struggle is resistance. And God, the ultimate coach, isn't removing it because he's building something in you that comfort could never produce. Endurance, wisdom, compassion, courage, faith, these aren't developed in ease, they're forged in fire. The people who've impacted the world most deeply, the leaders, healers, artists, prophets, they didn't come from ease. They came from fire. And the fire didn't destroy them, it forged them. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before he led anyone. Joseph spent years in a pit and a prison before he became prime minister. David was hunted like an animal before he became king. Paul was blinded and broken before he wrote most of the New Testament. You see the pattern? God doesn't waste struggle. He uses it to prepare you for assignments ease could never qualify you for. Moses needed the wilderness to strip away his Egyptian arrogance and teach him humility and dependence on God. Joseph needed the pit and the prison to develop the character that would keep him humble and wise when he had power. David needed to be hunted to learn how to trust God when everything looked hopeless. Paul needed to be blinded to truly see. Every giant you admire went through a season you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy. And that season wasn't wasted. It was necessary. It was preparation. It was training. And when their moment came, when their assignment arrived, they were ready. Not because life had been easy, but because it had been hard. Now here's the paradigm shift. God's primary goal is not your happiness. It's your wholeness. Not your comfort, your completion. And those two things often contradict each other. A loving parent doesn't give their child everything they cry for. They give them what they need to grow. If a child cries for candy before dinner, a good parent says no. If a child refuses to do homework, a good parent enforces consequences. If a child wants to quit every time something gets hard, a good parent teaches perseverance. Why? Because the parent sees the future. The parent knows that short-term discomfort leads to long-term strength. A loving surgeon doesn't avoid cutting because it hurts. They cut because it heals. They cause temporary pain to produce permanent health. They don't ask for your permission to make the incision. They don't stop because you're uncomfortable. They do what's necessary, even when it's painful, because they know what's on the other side of the pain. God operates the same way. His love is too intelligent, too intentional, too future-focused to be reduced to making you feel good right now. He's not interested in your temporary happiness. He's interested in your eternal wholeness. He's not trying to make your life easy. He's trying to make you ready. When you understand this, everything changes. You stop interpreting difficulty as rejection. You start seeing it as investment. You stop asking, why doesn't God love me enough to remove this? You start asking, what does God love me enough to develop through this? That question changes your posture. That question transforms you from victim to student. Because here's what most people don't realize. God's not trying to make you comfortable. He's trying to make you capable. He's not trying to give you an easy life. He's trying to give you a purposeful one. And purpose requires preparation. It requires capacity. It requires strength. And you don't build any of those things in comfort. And here's the paradox most people miss. The thing you're most ashamed of, most wounded by, most desperate to forget, that's often the exact thing God wants to use as your ministry. The exact thing he wants to turn into your message. The addict becomes the counselor. The divorcee becomes the marriage mentor. The bankrupt becomes the financial coach. The abused becomes the advocate. The depressed becomes the hope dealer. The anxious becomes the peace speaker. Why? Because your pain gives you credibility that theory never could. Your scars become your credentials. People don't trust advice from someone who's never been in the valley. They trust testimony from someone who climbed out. I've seen this over and over again in my years of ministry. The people who've experienced the deepest pain often have the most powerful ministry. Not because they have all the answers, but because they have the empathy. They have the understanding. They can look someone in the eye and say, I know what you're going through, I've been there, and you can survive this. And that connection, that authenticity, it heals people in ways 1,000 sermons never could. God doesn't waste suffering. He recycles it into service. He transforms your mess into your message, your test into your testimony, your pain into your platform. But only if you stop hiding it. Only if you let him redeem it. Only if you're willing to say, I went through this, and here's what I learned, and here's how you can survive it too. Your pain is not just for you. It's for someone else who's coming behind you on the same path. And when you turn your wound into wisdom, when you turn your struggle into strength for someone else, that's when it stops being a burden and becomes a gift. That's when the pain finally makes sense. That's when you see why you had to go through it. Because God was never just thinking about you. He was thinking about the people you're going to reach. He was thinking about the lives you're going to touch. He was thinking about the hope you're going to give to someone who's ready to give up. And he knew that you couldn't do that from a place of theory. You could only do it from a place of experience. Now let me address the biggest lie. If you had enough faith, you wouldn't struggle. That's what they told you, right? That's the lie that's keeping you trapped in shame and pretending everything's fine when it's falling apart. But here's the actual truth. Faith is not the absence of struggle. It's trust inside of it. Faith isn't denial. It's not pretending everything's fine when your world is crumbling. Faith is saying, I don't understand this, but I trust the one who does. It's saying, this hurts, but I believe it's not the end of the story. It's saying, I can't see the purpose yet, but I refuse to believe this is pointless. Faith doesn't remove the storm. It anchors you inside of it. Faith doesn't make the waves stop. It keeps you from drowning. And the strongest faith, the kind that moves mountains, is always developed in the valley, not on the peak. Anybody can believe God when life is good. It takes real faith to trust him when life is hard. Look at Job. The Bible says he was blameless and upright. He feared God and shunned evil. He had more faith than most people ever will. And yet, he lost everything. his children, his wealth, his health, everything. And his friends came to him and said the same thing religious people say today. You must have sinned. This is punishment. If you had real faith, this wouldn't be happening. But they were wrong. Job's suffering had nothing to do with his faith. In fact, it was because of his faith that he was tested. God trusted Job enough to let him go through the fire. And in the end, Job came out with a deeper understanding of God, a stronger character, and double everything he lost. But he had to walk through the valley to get there. Your struggle is not evidence of weak faith. It's evidence that God trusts you with the process. It's evidence that he believes you're strong enough to handle what he's developing in you. Weak people get weak tests. Strong people get strong tests. And if your life is hard right now, maybe, just maybe, it's because God sees strength in you that you don't see in yourself yet. So now you might be thinking, okay, Myles, I get it. Pain has purpose. But what do I actually do with this while I'm in the middle of the fire? Let me give you something practical. Something you can apply today. Something that will shift how you walk through every hard season from this point forward. First, ask the right question. Stop asking, why is this happening to me? Start asking, what is this happening for me? You hear that? 2 verses 4. That one word shift changes everything. It moves you from victim to student, from passive to powerful, from hopeless to expectant. When you ask, why is this happening to me? You're assuming you're being targeted, attacked, punished. You're putting yourself in a victim posture. And victims are powerless. Victims just endure. Victims just survive. But when you ask, what is this happening for me? You're assuming there's purpose. You're assuming there's a lesson. You're assuming God is up to something good even when it doesn't feel good. Every morning I want you to journal this. What is today's difficulty trying to teach me? Don't spiritualize it. Don't perform. Just listen. Be honest. Pain becomes purposeful the moment you stop resisting it and start learning from it. God speaks through discomfort. But you have to be quiet enough, humble enough to hear him. Maybe the difficult coworker is teaching you patience. Maybe the financial pressure is teaching you stewardship and trust. Maybe the health issue is teaching you to slow down and value your body. Maybe the relationship conflict is teaching you boundaries and communication. Maybe the season of loneliness is teaching you that your worth isn't dependent on other people's approval. There's always a lesson. Always. But most people are so busy complaining about the pain that they never extract the wisdom from it. They go through it, but they don't grow through it. And so they have to repeat it. Second, name the lesson before you exit the struggle. Don't waste your pain by rushing past it. Before you move on, before you try to forget, name what it taught you. Write it down. Say it out loud. This betrayal taught me discernment. This loss taught me what truly matters. This failure taught me resilience. This season of loneliness taught me how to be whole without needing validation from others. When you name the lesson, you extract the value. And here's the beautiful part. God never has to teach you that lesson again. You graduate, you move forward. But if you waste the pain, if you refuse to learn, guess what? You repeat the class. Same struggle, different circumstances, until you get it. I've watched people go through the same pattern for decades. Same toxic relationships with different people. Same financial mistakes with different numbers. Same career frustrations with different companies. Why? Because they never learned the lesson the first time. They never stopped to ask, what is this teaching me? They just wanted it to end. And so it keeps coming back until they finally wake up and pay attention. Third, find one person to serve with your story. Your pain is not just for you. It's for someone else who's struggling with something you've survived. Find one person this week who's going through what you went through. Share your story, not to impress them, but to encourage them. Not to preach, but to prove you can make it through this. I did. You will too. When you turn your pain into service, it stops being a wound and becomes a gift. It stops defining you and starts empowering others. That's redemption. That's when God takes what the enemy meant for evil and turns it into good. That's when your mess becomes your message. And I promise you, the moment you start helping someone else with what hurt you, something shifts. The pain starts to make sense. The anger starts to fade. The bitterness starts to heal. Because now it has purpose. Now it has meaning. Now it's not just something that happened to you. It's something that happened for someone else through you. Fourth, create a gratitude for struggle list. I know this will feel counterintuitive, but do it anyway. Write down 3 struggles you've endured. And next to each one, write what you gained because of it. Strength, clarity, boundaries, character, compassion, humility, faith, wisdom, resilience, independence, discernment. This practice rewires your brain. It trains you to see pain not as an enemy, but as an inconvenient teacher. And over time, you'll stop dreading difficulty and start trusting the process. You'll stop seeing every hard season as a punishment and start seeing it as preparation. I do this exercise myself regularly. I look back at the seasons I hated while I was in them, and I thank God for them now. The betrayal that taught me who to trust, the failure that taught me humility, the loss that taught me what really matters. The rejection that taught me my value isn't determined by other people's opinions. Every single one of those painful seasons produced something in me that I wouldn't trade for anything now. And fifth, pray a different prayer. Stop praying, God, remove this. Start praying, God, reveal what you're building through this. Stop praying, make it easier. Start praying, make me stronger. Stop praying, let me escape. Start praying, let me endure with grace. Stop praying, change my circumstances. Start praying, change me in my circumstances. That's not resignation, that's partnership. You're no longer fighting against God's process, you're cooperating with it. And when you cooperate with God's process, He accelerates your progress. He doesn't waste time breaking you down repeatedly. He moves you forward into the next level because you finally learned the lesson of this one. See, most people pray for God to change their situation, but God is more interested in changing them in their situation because the situation is temporary. But who you become is eternal. The circumstances will pass, but the character you develop will remain. And if you miss the character development because you're too focused on escaping the circumstances, you've wasted the entire experience. Let's bring this home. If you've made it this far, you came here asking, if God is real, why does He allow pain? And I hope by now you see, He doesn't just allow it. He offers it, not because He's cruel, but because He's intentional. Not because He's absent, but because He's invested. Not because He doesn't care, but because He cares so deeply, He refuses to leave you as you are. Your pain is not evidence that God doesn't care. It's evidence that He cares so deeply, He refuses to let comfort keep you small. He loves you too much to let you stay weak, shallow, entitled, fragile. He loves you enough to put you through the fire because He knows what's on the other side. And what's on the other side is a version of you that you can't even imagine right now. Stronger, wiser, more compassionate, more powerful, more free. So here's your mantra. I want you to say this out loud right now. Wherever you are, I am not being punished. I am being prepared. I am not being destroyed. I am being developed. And every struggle I endure is building something in me that ease never could. Say it again. Let it settle. Let it replace the lies. Let it sink into your bones. Let it become the lens through which you see every hard thing from this point forward. You're not broken. You've just been misled. Misled into thinking God's love looks like a life without problems. But the truth is, God's love looks like a life with purpose. And purpose requires process, and process requires pressure. The pain you're in right now, it's not wasted, it's not pointless. It's not proof that you're forgotten, it's proof that you're being forged. And one day, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day you'll look back and see the masterpiece that could only have been created through the fire. You'll see the strength that came from the struggle, the wisdom that came from the wound, the character that came from the chaos. And you'll thank God He loved you enough not to give you what you asked for, but what you needed. You'll thank Him for the closed doors that redirected you, for the betrayals that taught you discernment, for the losses that taught you what truly matters, for the failures that taught you humility, for the pain that taught you compassion, for the loneliness that taught you to find wholeness in Him, for every single thing that hurt, because every single thing that hurt also healed something deeper. And here's what I need you to understand as we close. The enemy wants you to waste your pain. He wants you to become bitter instead of better. He wants you to blame God, curse the process, and give up before the breakthrough. He wants you to see your struggle as evidence that God doesn't love you. Because if He can convince you of that lie, He can keep you stuck, small, and powerless. But God wants you to redeem your pain. He wants you to extract the wisdom, develop the character, and use the experience to help others. He wants you to see your struggle as evidence of his investment in you. Because when you see it that way, you become unstoppable. You become someone who doesn't fear difficulty because you know it's just the next level of development. You become someone who walks into the fire with confidence because you trust the one who's refining you. If this resonated with you, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Not for me, but as a declaration to yourself that you're ready to see your pain differently. That you're ready to stop running from struggle and start learning from it. That you're ready to trust God's process even when it hurts. Drop a comment and tell me, what's one struggle you're currently in that you're choosing to trust is building something in you? I want to hear your story. I want to see your breakthrough. I want to witness your transformation. And if you want more of this kind of perspective, the kind that doesn't sugarcoat life but helps you make sense of it, the kind that challenges your theology and transforms your mindset, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Because we're just getting started. There's so much more I want to share with you about purpose, about potential, about the power that's already inside you waiting to be unlocked. You're not alone in this. And your pain is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of your power. It's the doorway to your destiny. It's the fire that's forging you into everything you were created to be. So don't waste it. Don't run from it. Don't curse it. Learn from it. Grow through it. And let God use it to make you into the person the world needs you to become. Your struggle has meaning. Your pain has purpose. And your story is just beginning.